This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're listening to the original movie prop collecting podcast brought to you by Heritage Auctions, HA.com. They've got the giant Walking Dead auction literally starting tomorrow, October 30th, October 31st, happy Halloween, and November 1st. HA.com, go there right now, check it out. Stuff from all the seasons. These are the things they never gave to any other auction houses, and they've given them to Heritage. The Walking Dead auction, HA.com. Check it on out and go back to our last episode and hear us talking about the auction. So you can do both. Very, very exciting. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
If October 31st is Halloween, which is All Hallows Eve, does that make November 1st All Hallows Day?
Isn't that just Guy Fawkes Day? I don't know. I don't know anything.
No, that's the 5th.
Oh, that's the 5th.
That's bonfire night.
Remember the 5th of November.
Yeah, the fireworks are coming. Yeah. The 2 weeks of London fireworks are coming my way. We just had Diwali here, which is big. We have a big Indian population in the city. So lots of fireworks sort of just ended or have tapered off, and we're about to get them again in another week.
Can I ask a question about Indian food? Have you eaten like killer Indian food during your time in London?
Yes.
I bet, huh? Yeah.
Yes. For anybody visiting
really, really fabulous. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So there's a couple of places. There's Dishoom, which is I don't want to diminish it by calling it a chain. It's not a chain. It has multiple locations throughout London, but the only place it is London. It's still family owned, and they are fantastic. Their style is this. I guess it's kind of this like lost format for restaurants in India called the Iranian Cafe. It has nothing to do with Iran. It's some term or something that they use. But it was this sort of place where like kind of all castes could come and eat, and it was about protein, and they have this wrestler menu for feeding like lots of eggs to wrestlers to make them big and healthy, and it's just a very cool decor. It feels like a place where Indiana Jones would go and sit down and have a meeting with a guy about an artifact. It's very cool the way they've done all the restaurants out here. But it's beautiful, and they do these really great breakfasts. They do this bacon naan is their big thing. So it's basically
I could eat naan like you could eat naan like with my hand in naan, but bacon sounds pretty good. Yeah.
It's like a non like burrito basically that they make, and you can have it bacon and egg, sausage and egg. You can have bacon alone, sausage alone. They make it many different ways. It's incredible. So go do that. They have their own breakfast menu, but then they have a tremendous traditional sort of Indian dinner menu, which is great. They deliver through Deliveroo, which is our sort of Uber Eats here locally. They're excellent. That's sort of like that's your go-to. Run in and grab. Nice. And then there's a nice delivery one called Holy Cow, which friends of the podcast introduced me to, which is also really good. That's like a Deliveroo special. They do have locations, but it's more of a takeaway. And then if you want to get fit. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, had your kids ever eaten Indian food when you lived in the United States of America?
No.
But now they're into it.
Well, one of them is, yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
that's pretty good, though. That's pretty good.
One of them doesn't eat anything, but yes,
fair enough.
One is very into it. And then Trishna, as you get a little fancier, Trishna is which is in Marylebone, is fantastic, and I would say that's like the California Indian restaurant. So it's like
the
Indian
farm to table Indian restaurant.
Yes. It's like Californians have come in and done Indian, and they've sort of taken the traditional dishes and then sort of made them sort of West Coast, American that way. It has a very California vibe. It's excellent. That was actually one of the first places that we got introduced at. Oh, you have to go to Trishna. And that was that you should ask Berkey about this one, because that was JJ's big hangout while he was here making all the Star Wars movies.
Oh, funny.
So he would just go and make that his office and just
sit there, and people would come in and out.
Yes, because my unit driver drove for one of not for JJ, but one of the other people high up in that production. He's like, I spent many hours parked outside
just
of
sitting
Trishna.
outside of Trishna. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So that one's excellent. And then even a little more upscale from that, and I believe it's actually in the same restaurant group, is called Gymkhana. Gymkana, and that is excellent. Dave, they have a 250-pound old-fashioned that they serve, made with Pappy Van Winkle 20-year-old. Wow. I have not had it. I've had their 50-pound old-fashioned, which is made with another fancy whiskey. I thought it was a little bit, it's a little bit silly to pour Pappy 20 into an old fashioned. I get why they do it and whatever. So I had the 50-pound one. It was like the best old fashioned I ever had. But the food there is also incredible. Great, great decor and all that.
You should have the 250-pound one like the day like you're done. Like the
just
day
go
before
in there.
Just like right before you leave like the UK. That should be your final
make it happen. Yeah. But yes, Indian is here in the city is fantastic. We're regular visitors to all of those places. Gymkhana is actually a tough reservation to get, so you have to plan that one out a little in advance. Nice. But all highly recommended. That's where we are. What's new with you?
Relatively quiet, like life-wise. I guess I'll start what's new in props because there is nothing new other than props. Of course, there's no other answer to that.
What else is there to talk about?
Yeah, exactly. So Gino was in town. The great Gino Sabatino was in town, basically doing work on a couple of my props. Basically, I'm not going to lie, after the whole sort of mannequin FedEx sort of incident, the notion of, even to Gino, which has nothing to do with Gino, sort of shipping off expensive props started to seem a lot less interesting.
Yeah.
So he came out and actually worked out at Prop Store in their warehouse, brought to you by Heritage. And what he did, he worked on a couple of my pieces. One was, which was really interesting, one was my Boba Fett helmet. One of the things that was interesting there, which I guess we'd never really quite realized, was we knew it had been molded at some point. Someone had molded it. But what we realized was that when they molded it and then put it back together, they had basically lost a lot of screws. And so we started to realize there was just a lot of hardware missing, and there was a lot of these sort of pieces that kept the lens sort of steady that were missing. There was one where there should have been four. So it was held in, but it was kind of wobbly. Now,
was it molded by a toy company or like an EFX, that sort of thing? Or
I think way back in the day more, honestly.
Okay. Somebody just doing hashtag private deals sort of thing in the replica community.
Yeah, possibly. Okay. I mean, even possibly Don Post. I honestly don't know.
Wow.
It was a long time ago.
That guy.
Yeah, Don. So on that one, it was sort of very, again, none of this is simple, but so something like that, it was, just replacing some of the missing hardware. But then also, for example, just things that had been bothering me over the years, like they had used tape to hold the lens in. And so the lens had tape residue on it. And so there was some of that was just simple cleanup. But the real incredible work was the Vader helmet. If you guys can remember from our Vader deep dive, my helmet is the two mismatched pieces, the two mismatched numbers. It was used, the faceplate was used all throughout Empire, and then the combo was used for the Revelation scene in Jedi. And I guess at some point, this was in an auction and then went to Planet Hollywood. And I guess because it never fit together, because they were never supposed to be a pair, at some point, somebody had sort of cemented it together to kind of keep them together. I guess it wasn't cement, but some sort of white, resin something or other. To me, it's cement, but I'm sure it has a better name.
Them together.
Yes, basically. And then at some point, cracked them apart before it went up for auction back in the day when I got it out of Profiles in History, which is now Heritage Auctions. And when they were cracked, a couple of things happened. One, pieces of the bottom, the pieces of the top of the face got sort of like glued into the top of the dome. So pieces broke off into the dome. And the two rings were just completely gone. The two rings that are the two plumbing rings, if you can remember from the deep dive. Yeah. Anyway, Gino went to town. And what was really fascinating about this is all interior work. So it's nothing you're really seeing from the outside. And so he basically was able to not only get rid of all of the old white like whatever it was, plaster, whatever, and we'll have him on and maybe just go through it with pictures and stuff.
I think we should do that
because I think it whatever. But basically,
Bart's cutting these lovely images into the feed right now, so you're seeing.
But
you're
basically,
seeing glorious Vader.
We'll have him on, and I'll just simply leave it with. Now we have reinstalled the plumbing rings and a matching pair, and the two pieces now sit perfectly on top of each other, even though they are the original mismatched pairing, and it just has, I guess, display integrity, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
The helmet
sits right.
Yeah, it sits right for the first time, honestly, in years, in probably 20 years. So, really incredible. It was a lot. It was
honestly,
a bunch of work. Yeah.
Since it was properly mated up with its missing,
yeah,
right? Because
very,
it probably never
true.
sat right.
When they
Since
had
production.
when they had it in that scene in Jedi, for all I know, it was just using like Velcro and stuff to kind of keep it in place. Because maybe they were able to force it in, because again, they're not, those plumbing rings, each one is a pair, and they're not a million times different from each other, but each one has its own perfect pairing. Anyway, we'll get into it with him. We'll have him on for a special episode. It was fantastic. He kind of, he was out here for like a week, but just the stuff looks so good. It's kind of incredible. Really, really happy. So
he was out here for a week, not working on my Dallas costume.
Very true. Very happy not to be working on it, he said. Yeah. But no, really, really came
talk to
together.
him about that.
Yeah. Well, now he's home, not with any of my stuff, so I can't, now he's back home. So yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay,
really,
start
really
harassing him.
incredible. Just his knowledge of the stuff is unsurpassed, and
Yes.
the work is just exquisite. So I'll
Second
leave it
to
at
none.
that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. What's new in props for you, my friend?
I have a show and tell tonight. Normally, Dave, this would be, and this perhaps segues a little bit into our topic tonight. This normally would be what we would consider to be a private piece, but I'm going to show it here because it's mine. And as with anything in life, Dave, the best things are free.
Oh, look at that! God damn. You should just wear that all the time. You should wear that for the whole fucking show.
Yeah. Yes, it's gorgeous. Wow. It's beautiful. And you see all the little. It's you can't tell it from here, but it's very heavy. This is Viserys and Rhaenyra's crown from the show, and I've been bugging them for one, but these were made very specially, and they kind of were trying to get away with having sort of the two that they had for a long time. But this season, I finally convinced them we've been in long enough. They had enough lead time to make another one. And you see here the sort of so
that's how it
padding
stays on the head.
And, and that's what's fitted to the actor that wears it. So obviously, Emma's would be fit differently than Patty's, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same crown, but just as with any crown, they would actually do that as the sovereign changed. The crown doesn't, and they would, the metal workers would come in and refit it and whatever. But it's just an incredible piece of work. I mean, you can see the quality of the sigils.
I was going to say the various sigils, medals, whatever you want to call them, is just fabulous. Wow, gorgeous.
And it's not gold, it's not actual gold, but they made it to look like this was actually hammered gold that was made, in the time, the way, with the tools that would have been used to make it at the time. So it's an incredible piece of work.
Fabulous.
And I love it. And
what are you going to do display wise, or are you figuring that out?
Yeah, I think I'm going to figure it out. I mean, eventually this will be one of the things that's proudly on display, I think, in my future office, and just kind of get a simple sort of, have Chris Barton just do like one of those little invisible sort of wire things, similar to what he did for my bat belt, which is over there. Where it just kind of, it's a little wire sort of rig that like holds it from inside, but it's an invisible thing. So that it just seems like the piece is kind of floating there. But very thrilled to have it. Very grateful to my great costumes team,
gorgeous
Joe and Caroline, for making my nerdy dreams happen as they just sigh and hand me plastic boxes at the end of production. But yes, a wonderful piece, and truly sort of emblematic of our of our show, and this is the thing that everybody is fighting over. So it's very nice to.
I feel like the final,
as an artifact,
when you get to the final week of shooting, you should wear that all week yourself. Just
without commentary.
Very just don't say anything, and just tell your assistant to tell people don't say anything, please.
Yeah.
He's having a breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe very just cool. Like a battle helmet, What do you think of that?
I like the king though. It's good, very Mel Brooks. It's good to be the king.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's excellent.
I can hire my own piss boy to follow me around.
There you go. It writes itself.
There you go.
That is excellent. Congratulations. Gorgeous.
Yes, thank you.
I got one too. No. Very, very cool. Before we get started, we actually did want to do a couple of auction follow-ups, because this month has been so jammed with heritage auctions. And maybe we'll start quickly with the, I guess in order, maybe the Kief Fromm auction, number 1.
Yeah.
I am annoyed at myself. I ended up oversleeping, and I did not get a chance to throw a bid in on the All-Star Squadron cover. I went kind of over what I wanted to pay anyway.
Okay.
But
so you weren't too gutted over it.
Yeah, I was annoyed at myself, but maybe there things happen for a reason, as they say.
If you had been in it, would you have kept bidding would you have gotten sucked in, knowing yourself? Would you have gotten sucked in a little bit?
I might have gotten sucked in a little bit, but I also, and I loved it, but I also kept sort of feeling like I just don't want to spend. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to make it $100,000 piece. Not that it doesn't deserve to be. I guess I just didn't want to spend that, I guess is sort of a non-answer in there somewhere. Yeah. And then a lot of the other stuff I was following basically went way beyond what I was thinking, like I might throw a bid on, basically. I guess I'm not going to lie. I guess I was hunting a little bit for some bargains, here and there. And there were none to be really had. I thought it was a really strong auction across the board. The great pieces like the Mac Rayboy Master Comics, that did over 300,000. The hit comics, the one you liked with the swordfish, yep, exactly, 275.
Yeah.
So these are good numbers. The
Frazetta.
The Frazetta, I mean, again, I think that's just hot
almost
right now.
Almost $500,000.
I was really surprised by that. In some ways, I know this is going to sound silly, the McFarlane all-in with the VIG did 781, which I'm guessing is like 6-something hammer, I think. I'm probably...
I think it was 5 and change
something hammer. Okay.
I was surprised, because it got bid way up past 5 in pre-bidding, and then it just petered out on the day.
I thought that was going to go even crazier.
I was surprised.
Everyone has been talking about, in the comic art community, has been saying that there has not been a sort of an auction McFarlane piece that has sold in the millions. I guess there have been quote unquote #private deals. And that maybe that somehow, like, nobody wanted to be the first. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I was expecting look, you can never sit here and go 781,000 is a disappointment, but I was expecting higher on that and maybe lower on some of the other pieces, that the Golden Age just wouldn't have, the reach it had. I was
been that strong.
Yeah, just to see sort of like, and again, these are, the Shazam, the Captain Marvel, Wiz Comics, the Jack Cole Daredevil that we looked like, the Murphy Anderson, Carmine Infantino Flash, those all did over $100,000. The All-Star Comics did that. Boy, the Batman 13 page did 100,000 with VIG. So
that was my favorite piece. If I had had to piece, probably take one,
I was interested. It blew right by what I was sort of thinking. And those were the big pieces, and they all did, I think, really solid numbers, which I think bodes well for, I don't know, all things in the sort of
people who collect.
The hobby, but also the Golden Age sort of area. Yeah.
And also the things that you're spending a lot of money on now, knowing how much legs these pieces from the 50s, literally 30 years before a lot of the things that you're collecting are still doing that strong. You've got to feel good about what you have invested into your stuff now for a 30-year time horizon or 20-year time horizon or
well,
whatever it is.
I feel good for my children, but yes,
Well,
exactly.
yeah, but there's that too.
But yeah, no.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
McFarlane pieces doing, you sort of alluded to things doing 7 figures perhaps on #private deals. Are those, I mean, can I guess that those are Spider-Man covers?
Spider-Man covers, yes.
Okay.
And again, it's all a little bit of it is rumor too. I'm not going to lie. Like I've never spoken to any of the principals that in theory spent
the buyer or the seller.
Yes, exactly. But it's a pretty good rumor, and certainly some other. I've seen some very high asking prices on other McFarlane pieces that, then sort of you wonder, like, did someone pay that? So again, I know that's not a perfect answer, but yes, Spider-Man. And that was other comments too, it wasn't Spider-Man, it was Batman. He's not as known. Again, a very good number. I honestly did think though it was going to break, I in my brain, I thought it was going to break 1 million. And again, it's hard to be disappointed. And by the way, maybe it's better as a collector that it didn't for me. You know what I mean? Like in the sense of at least things are gettable.
It's only $500,000.
Right. Exactly. So wherever, exactly.
Yeah.
But really, really good, healthy numbers.
Strong sale. It was like 3.5 million hammer, I think, across the board. So that's really strong.
And like I said, just nice to see people still interested in some of this stuff. In terms of like I said, the Mac Ray Boys and Lou Fines of the world. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, you didn't. Like I said, I was watching and I ended up like I was gonna throw some bids and it just blew by what I was sort of thinking. But there was nothing that like tempted you enough, right?
No, the closest thing would be like in staring at it, you're like, oh, if I expanded my list from, 10 to 15 or 20, I think like a great kind of Bob Kane Batman image would for sure be in there just because of my obsession with Batman. Like I don't have a particular Batman that I need, but I would like to sort of have Batman sort of a representation, I think, of the character.
Sure.
I think across time. I certainly would love a Tim Sale Long Halloween page because that's probably the closest thing, a Killing Joke, which is a joke at this point, but
a little bit, but they show up. They do show up on rightly or wrongly. They do show up. So it's not going down. I guess we'll leave it at that.
Yes. But that was probably the closest. Of course, the McFarlane cover, but that was just so. I knew that was even at that price, even at the low hammer price that it achieved was not really within the realm of something where I was willing to be a player. Should we talk about Stewart Berkowitz? Yeah.
So that was the other big auction, which was just last week. The Stewart Berkowitz auction. And there are some lessons to be found in it overall, but boy, oh boy, the big stuff was strong. I mean, I was watching because I was curious I was interested in a Batarang. I was paying attention to a couple of the other Bat devices like the Bat radio and whatnot. And that stuff was just strong across the board, and some just surprises too. I mean, the Batman and Robin and again, these are all with the VIG, 575. I thought that was very strong. The Wonder Woman, 225. The Joker at 212. The Bat Computer at 150. And the Bat Computer certainly surprised me. The Joker, not that it wasn't going to do well, but that high was great. The Bat Girl at 87.5, and the two Henry Winkler Fonzie jackets.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I knew somebody that was interested and they were just blown out of the water. Good for them. It was nice seeing the Julie Newmar Catwoman right up there at 68,000. And then Star Trek, the main genie costume. And then it starts to, as we get into some of the other 60s stuff, there was a little bit of love for the Munsters. There was a little bit of love for the Key Get Smart prop. Mm-hmm. And then it definitely sort of starts to dissipate a little bit. I think certain things, just did better than others. I think, look, I'm just sort of judging here. A lot of the rest of the Munster stuff, meaning not Herman Munster, maybe it's sort of had its day. Again, nothing bad, but just, you know what I'm saying? Not, not amazing. You know what I mean? Like, same thing with like Bewitched and Captain Kangaroo and Howdy Doody. Again, these were not, these were, you wonder like, what did he pay for them and what are they selling for? I just think there's not the appetite for Beverly Hillbillies and whatnot. Star Trek, Batman, like Genie, or at least the Key Genie, Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. I think these are sort of still strong. The Honeymooners, the main Honeymooners piece at 42.5, I was watching that, the original, the original one. Again, again, I think some strong numbers, but the strong stuff was strong. Maybe the weak stuff was weak. I don't know. That was my sense of it.
I took great heart in the fact that 60s Batman, the great stuff, was still running that strong, given that that's a full 15 to 20 years before sort of our key collecting era, and you and I have invested quite a bit into our key collecting era. And if in 20 years there's still that much interest in our stuff, and it's not apples for apples necessarily, but we know how nostalgia works and the things that sort of have staying power. I just found it an encouraging sign. Certainly anybody that grew up watching Batman 66 on television in the first run, those people are retired now. I mean, they're in their 70s. They're, even if you were a kid, you were still born in the 50s, watching that. So you're 70 now, most likely. So that it was just encouraging to me, and that it had there's generations are following on and still being interested in it, and interested at that level, which I thought was great.
How much do you think, and I don't know, it's a word that goddamn gets thrown around so much in the entertainment industry, but there's really no other way of saying it at this point. Is there I was looking for a pattern, and I'm not sure Fonzie and Happy Days fits in, although I'm glad it does. I'm glad it's so strong. And I should point out, by the way, Heritage is doing another auction coming up. It's like a SAG auction for like raising money for SAG, and Henry Winkler has put a Fonzie jacket of his into that auction. So there is a third bite at the apple for anyone who missed out. That's coming up. I don't know the date, but check that out on HA.com. Okay. It's a SAG, Screen Actors Guild auction. But what I was going to say was Batman, Wonder Woman, Star Trek, these are active, forgive me, IPs. I don't know what else to say. Do you know what I mean? And yes. I mean, again, I'm sure somewhere, some CEO is, I don't know, masturbating to me saying the word strong IPs, but these are strong IPs, and I guess obviously there is nostalgia, that is a part of it, but is the fact that there are still Batman movies, that there are still Star Trek movies, that whatever, do you think that's a part of it on some level? I'm not saying the person who bought the Batman costumes doesn't love the 60s show, but are they more confident because Batman hasn't disappeared the way, say, Beverly Hillbillies or Green Acres has? I guess that's my question to you.
Maybe.
There you have it, folks. Maybe. We'll be right back. Yeah.
I hadn't really thought of it that way. I see what you're saying. And sure, it's still in the public consciousness. Maybe that all just helps the whole thing stay alive, I guess. I mean, look, it doesn't hurt that Star Trek has had multiple iterations, and that's why it's chicken or egg, right? It's like that's the strength of that original series that has allowed it to continue on and on and on. But that also keeps interest up in the original. And sure, I mean, Wonder Woman, that shocked me. The Linda Carter, I knew the Batman and Robin would do well. If you told me Linda Carter's ensemble from the television show would be the second highest selling lot in the auction, I would have probably raised an eyebrow at you. But maybe that's because the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman is still so present in the consciousness, and thus a rising tide lifts all.
I also
Wonder
think
Women
for the
or
Wonder
something.
Woman, there was something to be said for head to toe, from the boots to the earrings.
Yeah.
All, like everything was there. There was no sense of like, oh, you don't have the boots or the gloves or replica or something. And I do think that spoke to something as well. But yeah, I was a little surprised there too. Not that I was expecting strong. I just not sure I would have ranked it as number 2. But So yeah, but no, like I said, I was just curious, and like I said, obviously there is nostalgia for this stuff, and seeing something like 2 Fonzie jackets, because that's multiple bidders, that's at least 3 bidders. I mean, in the sense of, it's not like, oh, the first one went for a lot and the second one didn't because now there were the other guy was gone. And look, I think that speaks to. I love that, like Henry Winkler is still sort of working and doing hilarious, roles on things. Yeah, I just watched him. And I don't know if you ever watched Loot on Apple. It's the Maya Rudolph show. He just popped up on that as sort of a crazy nudist billionaire. And he's fucking hilarious. People just don't even, I mean, I think people learned from Barry how funny he could be, but like, and on Parks and Rec and stuff. And he's so
Is
funny.
Luke good?
It's enjoyable. I watch it.
Okay. Okay.
It's watchable. Yeah.
Signal the audience if you're okay, Dave. Is Apple there with you right now?
It is great.
I'm having a great time. Being treated very well.
I love every episode of Loot.
Okay. Very good.
Anyway, I was shocked. I mean, because I asked my kids. I was driving in the car, and I don't know what made me think of it, but I asked my son. I was like, "Do you know who Fonzie is?" And he does. Like somehow I guess we did something right. He knows who Fonzie is. But I'm not
Did
sure.
Did you talk about punching a jukebox? Did you ask any details? How deep did it go?
I didn't get that far into it, and I was trying to figure out, like, is that just like the old Weezer video, or like, because I'm not sure he's ever seen an episode.
Does he know what a music video is?
Exactly. What is MTV? Anyway, I was curious. I was trying to sort of figure out if there was a pattern. There definitely were things like The Honeymooners, where that's 2 people clearly just bidding on classic television. And it was good to see that, it was a really prime piece and it did a nice number. And I do think it was a good number. It wasn't an insane number, but I don't, like the way the Batman was. It was just interesting to see the stuff that did go insane and their connection to the fact that they are still things that are maybe more in the public consciousness. Anyway, maybe a theory. I'd be curious what our audience thinks of.
Write us. Yeah. Write us. Tell us. And speaking of coconuts.
Yes, get ready if you're watching the YouTube, because I'm about to have much longer hair and be a lot less, a lot more sort of unshaven. So enjoy that, and a different shirt. So
I'm going to change my shirt.
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to go change my shirt and grow my hair really long. Here we go. This is a topic that I think there's a lot of, I think people always are, yelling at us when we talk about, hashtag private deals, which is sort of a running joke on the show. But there is something to be said for private deals. And actually, that's why we thought we would kind of dig into that today a little bit. So speaking of coconuts, private deals. Ryan, you're in the middle of many private deals as we speak, yes?
It does feel like I have a lot of plates spinning. I mean, it's hard, and I don't want to be overly coy.
No, I understand that, but I guess more the philosophy and less the piece, I guess.
Yes, but I have probably 3 different plates spinning at the moment. And look, 3 or none of these things might come to fruition. That's sort of, that's collecting. But all are sort of, highly interesting pieces to me. They're all on the table from, sort of different sources, different people, and they came into my sphere via very different avenues as well, which is the kind of the nature of these things. And I called Dave at some point, I think this past week as of this recording, and I was sort of moaning to him about how, like, now I know what it's like to be you, a collector of some profile who's known to
right, where people are just starting to reach out to you with just
the cash,
big,
yeah. Yeah. Hey,
big ticket,
Ryan,
big items. Yeah.
you can change my life. Why
Right.
don't you get to it? Change my life. And yeah, I mean, look, I don't. I say that sort of. I really kiddingly. I mean, I don't. There's no. I harbor no resentment about it at all because I'm not. I'm not a mark at a carnival where I can be.
Well,
I think of that. I think of that Simpsons where Homer's assuring Marge that he's smart and he's on top of everything, and then he just becomes the pigeon, walking through the circus with all the money in his hand, and that's me, but it's with props. So I love a private deal, and I think it's become a bit of a punchline on this show, as if. Because somehow the narrative became that David and I are so cultured and whatever. It's all about
I'm gonna back it up a little bit. I'm gonna say as we began attacking fakes and fake props, which mostly, unfortunately, they sell in auction too sometimes, but they more often than not sell in the pages of Facebook and whatnot. Lots of private deals. Lots of like. Hey, I'm popped into your DM and I'm offering you, Marvel stuff and Star Wars stuff and Harry Potter wands and whatnot. And the very people who I think are responsible for that seem to decide to try and change the narrative and attack us and say we were attacking private deals. And I guess what this episode really, if I think about it, is this is about defending private deals, but by the way, parentheses, still attacking no good criminals that make fake props. And I am using the word criminal. So I just want to define that. It's like
this will always be an anti-criminal podcast.
Yes. We've never been against private deals, and there's a lot to be said for private deals. And so let's just define our terms a little bit, just in terms of like maybe to have this conversation. And if the listener is a little bit new to the world going, is it what it sounds like? And yeah, obviously you can buy in an auction. And obviously when you buy in an auction, if you are the buyer, you are usually paying a buyer's premium. And let's be honest, you're also paying taxes on something. And if you do a private deal, the price is the price. And I guess to some extent, the taxes part is really between you and the seller. There's no real other way of saying that.
And your priest or rabbi.
Yes. And you're the person who makes your fake Harry Potter ones. And so there are a lot of advantages for that. Number one, obviously, maybe your total number is a better number. It doesn't have that buyer's premium because on the seller side, the seller isn't paying a seller's premium, and maybe they're looking to avoid some taxes, or maybe they're looking to buy something. So I think there's a lot to be said for sort of saving those percentages on either side. So when you see a hammer price of whatever, X, that's not what the seller is getting, and it's not what the buyer is paying. I guess that's just to define a little bit of our terms. And so obviously the opportunity to purchase something directly, I think can be wonderful. I think there's also a lot of times where, for a variety of reasons, maybe the seller doesn't want the world knowing. Maybe that people know they have the piece. Maybe they don't want people knowing they're selling. Maybe it was something that was given to them in a certain sort of situation. They were told, you can have this from the set or whatnot. And whatever their level of respect for the director or whoever told them they could have it, they decided they don't want to publicly be out there with something. Or maybe they'd be publicly out there in 30 years, but right now they don't want to do that. And so
this is how Dave dispenses of all of his House of the Dragon memorabilia.
Oh man, I got like $8 million a hat. It was really incredible. I mean, those things are collectible as fuck. But again, like to avoid that sort of thing. And again, it makes perfect sense why you would want to do that. And it certainly works very well for the buyer. I will certainly say in our world where these numbers are becoming so big, one of the biggest problems with a private deal, in my old days of like comic art, I would buy something from someone, it might be $10,000, and they would say, can you give me cash? And I would pay them in $10,000 cash. And if you were giving somebody $10,000 cash, that didn't seem like an insane amount of money of cash to use. But certainly nowadays, I mean, I wouldn't even know how you could begin to give somebody $100,000 worth of cash. And
Oh my God.
if you did give somebody $100,000 of cash, the fuck are they going to do with it? How would you ever spend $100,000 cash? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, funny story. Do you want me to tell a
please,
specific
yeah.
story? When I bought
No, I do not want you to tell a story.
Well, I did. You're preambling. I didn't. You're on a good roll. I didn't want to.
Thank you.
I didn't want to slow your roll. But no, I mean, many years ago at this point, number that seems quaint. When I bought the my Conan father's sword from the crew source that I tracked down. One of the stipulations was that it was all in cash.
Sure.
And it was not $10,000. I mean, it was many multiples of that. And that was the deal. It was like, I only want cash, and if you want this bad enough, you'll figure it out. And I was like, okay. And like, it was right there. And I don't think it was a deal, but I could get my head around the price. And I felt like if I hold on to this thing for 10 years, I think I'm going to be fine. And sure enough, here we are, now probably less than 10 years later. And I think I did fine. But I didn't even know where to start. So I actually, funny, because for me, it was like, I'm doing an above board thing. I don't know what this guy is going to do with
whether
that,
or not
and whether he's
he
going to declare
reports the price. That's his business,
or drive it to Mexico or whatever he was trying to do. And I phoned up a buddy of mine who actually was in the ATM business.
Oh, funny.
And he owned a bunch of the the ATMs that you see in the 7-Eleven. Funny enough, he had a bunch in strip clubs that chart good
so you have a buddy in the mafia. Cool.
I do. He no, just the ATMs, and those would he was charging a percentage or something of whatever they were taking out. So those made good money. He had a couple in some weed dispensaries where people were desperate for cash. So he had this kind of crazy job because this was his business, and he was sort of an employee of one. So he did all the filling. So he had to, like, his whole life was going around at odd hours because he could not establish a pattern at any of these things because these things are watched, because they know there's a man with a magic cash bag walking
somebody's
around.
coming with X amount of cash.
Right. And he didn't have
and
the
usually,
money.
by the way, small bills too, like not even like
20s. Right. 20s, sometimes smaller bills, depending on the venue. And he just didn't have the money to hire, Brinks and security and because at that point you just eat your margin so much. And he was doing really well with this thing, which COVID unfortunately killed. So he ended up selling the business because COVID really sped about the end of cash, at least in LA. So anyway, he knew a ton about cash. So I phoned him up and I was like, here's the situation. I'm being completely above board with you. What do I do? And he's like, just call the bank. Just call the bank and just tell them they're not going to have it for you on the day. You can't just walk in there and say with a deposit, a withdrawal slip saying, I need this. You call them and you tell them what you need. And they might ask you why you need it or what you're doing because, just because they have to be above board with things. But there's no declaration involved when you're taking cash out. It's when you put
it's when you
put
where
a
did
ton
this
of
cash
in.
come from? Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, and he made me aware of all that. And so I was like, okay. So I phoned my branch, who actually I had done business with over 15 years. I had my personal accounts were there. We had a mortgage there, and we had my corp for my writing side of things we do. My loan out was also there. So I had a long history with them, and they didn't blink, and they were just like, okay, when do you need it and whatever. And nobody asked me what I needed it for or whatever. And they just gave me a day, and then they phoned me up and they like, we have it. And then I came into the bank and they came out the sort of the side security door because they couldn't slip it under the window, and just handed me a manila envelope filled with a lot of cash in $100 bills. So it was smaller than it would have been if it was in 20s. In 20s, you're talking about like a briefcase situation, whatever. And then I was just like, okay. And they jokingly sort of said, so what are you buying? And I just said a piece of art because I felt like that was easier to explain. It was
the Conan sword. Yeah.
Do you
remember that there's two swords in Conan? There's the father.
So the one he's forging at the beginning, his dad forges, and then Darth Vader steals it from him, and then he wants to get it back. So, and then I just walked out the side door, and I was like, and I got in my car, I locked all the doors. I drove home as fast as I could. Thankfully, it was like half mile from my house, and I ran up ran up into my office where I had this really nice secure safe that was bolted to the floor, and I just threw it in the safe, and then sweated for 72 hours until the guy showed up at my house.
Wow.
And he came, delivered the sword, and took the envelope away in his Prius, and off he went into the sunset. And actually, I did another couple of deals with him. He had other much smaller business over the subsequent years, and a smaller thing. And one thing I actually acquired and then placed with a friend, and another thing was another movie that his family had worked on, that I took. Was more in the kind of paperwork realm, but I took it because it was cool. So
all cash on those, but obviously, but not as big numbers.
Yes, all cash. I think actually the paperwork thing, I think I just wrote him a check. But the other thing was all cash, but it's much smaller number. And then I knew what to do. So yeah.
But by the way, I mean, this was someone, he was in the business. You researched him, whatever. Obviously, you didn't know him, but you'd had multiple meetings with him. But I mean, there is something. I mean,
we had a meal together.
Right. Because there is something, like, I guess, randomly frightening if you're dealing with someone on Facebook that you don't know and they want, whatever, I'm making this up, $50,000 cash.
Yeah.
Sure. How do you know they're not going to just hit you on the head? So, I don't know. Cash definitely, as we've moved forward into these larger numbers, definitely seems, crazy. Just crazier, because again, what do you do? I mean, on their end, what are you doing?
That's my thing. Is it's for the seller. What are you going to do with that? It's funny. We if as little as cash has any seeming relevance in the U.S., it's even worse here in the U.K. We had an assistant who is departing the show. Not my assistant, one of the others in the pool, but she was amazing and did a ton of work for all of us and would cover sets and locations. You end up kind of on the show sort of. They do teamwork a lot of times, and she did a lot of stuff for me, including babysitting my kids. And she was packing off to go on this holiday. So as a gift, her direct report had put together a gift of essentially like a travel wallet, sort of satchel, a secure one that you would basically a fancy fanny pack, or as we would call it in the UK, a bum bag. Because a fanny,
is that really what they call it, a bum bag? Oh.
Yeah, a fanny is in the front, not in the back, Dave.
Dear Lord.
As you know, yeah. It's really, I can't anymore. It's yeah. So the bum bag, but they filled it with cash, like UK pounds. And that I was like, it wasn't my game. I was just asked to contribute to it, but I was like, she's not even traveling within this country, and this cash is useless here. Like, what are you doing? And they're like, come on, it's awesome. And I was like, it might be, but you're creating a complete pain in the ass for this person that you're trying to say thank you to. So we had a good laugh about it. But I mean, and that was obviously a much smaller amount, but it's essentially useless here because nobody wants it. You walk into there are restaurants you go into now that will not take
just no cash.
Will not take cash. I mean, taxis want it. That's so she could just travel around London for the rest of the time in a taxi and not have to worry about taking out her card, I guess.
This is a little bit of a
private deal.
Hashtag private deal. This is a little bit of a story connecting to the stuff we were talking about at the very beginning of the show. I told everybody about Gino being out here, so we went and got something welded. And this is just a little detail from the story I've already told. We went to get something welded.
Was it my Dallas helmet, Dave, that he's working on putting on top of the
interestingly enough, no.
Interesting.
No, nothing to do with that. So we went to get something welded, and basically we went and got the thing welded, and the guy was like $50, and he was like, "Do you have cash?" And I had $47 in my pocket, and he was like, "That's fine." And I gave him the $47, and then I realized at some point I had no cash in my pocket, for 5 days. Like, I kind of kept forgetting to go to an ATM or something. Like, I just had zero cash, and it was the strangest thing. Like, it never mattered. And I realized I still say things to my kids like, "Do you need money? Do you need cash?" And once in a blue moon, I guess they go to like a carnival or something at a school and cash works. But like, other than that, like, they don't. And you know, I was raised, it's just one of these funny things. Like, I was raised, if nothing else, you always
Even
had to
their
have,
weed dealer takes Venmo.
yeah. But like, I was raised literally like, you always wanted to have $20 in case you were mugged, so you could give them something. You wanted to give them cash. But anyway, nobody wants cash. But with these giant
Nowadays, with inflation, a mugger would be angry if all you had was $20.
only 20. Yeah, I don't understand. Well, they'll
Extra beating for you.
Take my iPhone. You know, it's funny, like, I do think there are these deals now that end up being sort of like part cash, part, you know, whatever, where it's because, again, the numbers are so big. But again, with cash, I do say, you know, you got to really make sure you know the person. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to put that. I think that's the scariest part of the private deal. You know, and again, it's one thing, again, if you know the person, but if you are driving to a mysterious parking lot, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, and again,
I mean,
you know, obviously how deals get done, everyone's deal is different, you know?
And I think this is a place where being, you know, Dave and I being collectors of profile, whatever, people know who we are, especially in this very small niche community. Most of the private deals I do nowadays are with people that I already know.
Right.
You know, in a roundabout way, one of these deals is with somebody I know. One is with somebody I know very well, and then one is with a complete stranger that, you know, kind of walked in the door, thankfully through the podcast, through the internet. So very grateful for that, presuming it all works out in the end. But it's been a long time, I think, since I've done the meeting the stranger on the internet and going forward and doing the deal, because this is the way this collecting used to work. It was either, you know, 10 years, 15 years ago.
I mean, there was a point there were no auctions. I mean, they were few and far between.
Yeah,
I think Joe Maddalena was doing Profiles in History or whatever the early version of Profiles was. That exists maybe. There were occasional auctions. Prop Store maybe existed but didn't do auctions.
They were a retail shop.
Yeah, exactly.
When I walked in the door, it was the Profiles catalog probably twice a year, maybe 3 times a year that you waited for. And other than that, it was just waiting for Prop Store to update their website or to phone you up and offer you something, because they all had our want lists and what we wanted and this and that. And then other than that, it was really, you know, pounding the pavement and talking to trying to talk to old crew guys. I you know, on my on Colony, I used, because my line producer on that show knew everybody. So I actually went to him with all of the U.S. contacts that people had trouble tracking down from, you know, Raiders and from the Star Wars trilogy and all that, and just said to him, can you find these people on the old crew list? And he turned up a bunch of people. Unfortunately, none of that really bore fruit. I think we got some photos and some paperwork, but there was no like, yes, here's my Darth Vader helmet that came out of those guys. But I really did a lot of pavement pounding.
Every time you pounded the pavement and then knocked on a door, when the door opened, Brandon was sitting in the living room.
Yeah. Yeah. Motherfucker. Yeah. Yeah, drinking. They were drinking beers out of their newly sold Biker Scout helmets. Just relentless. But yeah, I mean, and this is all before kids, when I had more time to do those sorts of things. That was collecting back in the day, which is why I think why some of the sort of cloak and dagger, smoke and mirrors reputation of this hobby as kind of an underground thing with a little bit of, I don't want to say shadiness, but a little gray area, gray market, has always shadowed this hobby because of the nature of these things. These things were never meant to be really owned by private people, whereas like comic book art was a lot of times was just the property of the artist who drew it, or the artist and the writer who created the book, or whatever.
Although so even there was a period where
right.
Like stuff disappeared from the Marvel warehouse before they were returning art to the artists. And so they got some of their art back, but there was a lot of stuff they did. So, I mean, everything has definitely, you know, and I think any collectible field probably has a little bit of a darker side, so to speak. Yeah.
But now it's out in the open in a way. There are so many auction houses, at least trying to sell this stuff, and there are multiple auctions a year. The prices have gone kind of cuckoo bananas. More things are coming out of the woodwork and finding their way in. So I find myself doing fewer and fewer private deals on a yearly basis or a 3-yearly basis or biannually or whatever it is. But they do still present themselves.
Come around. And look, there's something to be said for an auction house, which is to say an auction house, when you're dealing with an auction house, there is a date of the auction. You get the catalog, you get the pictures. I want more pictures, whatever it is. And then there's the date of the auction, and then you bid, and if you win, you're the winner. You pay your bill, and the piece shows up, 2 weeks later. When you are dealing with a person, an individual in a private deal, and I'm not talking about, I want to be really clear, I'm not talking about any kind of like anything is, what's the word, criminal or fake or anything, but people are sometimes just flakes. And I mean that in a fun, fine way. But like you're talking to somebody and then they just disappear. Like you haven't given them any money. It's not like they've stolen your money. It's just you're talking to them and you don't get an email back. Or I had one very recently which made me kind of crazy, which was I was told about a Star Wars piece. It seemed really interesting. I was sent.
You don't say.
Yeah. I checked out the piece. I saw pictures. It looked really great. This whole elaborate, I don't know, like Zoom was put together with me and the guy's son, and the piece was in England. They were going to bring the piece back, and I said, "Do you want to talk about the price, whatever?" They're no, let's wait till you have it in your, they wanted to show it to me and all of this kind of stuff, and I was just like, "Oh, this is great," and then 24 hours later, not even, I got a phone call from the person who was sort of in the middle of it going, they're giving it to one of the auction houses. And I'm like, what happened? And it's like, well, you never gave them a number. I was like, I tried to give them a number. They told me not to. They told me to wait till whatever. We're selling an auction. And so it'll show up in an auction. I'll check it out when it's in the auction. It's no big deal. But it was just flakiness. I mean, I don't know what to say. Again, there was no criminal act. It was just like, I'd like to have the hour of the Zoom back. You know what I mean? Like I don't care. It's just, I can, I'll bid on the piece, but like, it's just sort of like, the fuck, make up your mind. And I guess that is something that you do have to understand, that people are people in sort of the world of the private deal. It's not on a calendar. It's not on a schedule. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that it is what it is. And that's not a terrible thing. It was just sort of annoying and a waste of my time, I guess, which, by the way, as you track down sort of private deals or try and get involved in private deals, it probably ends up being a waste of time more often than not. Meaning, again, going back to some of your earliest stories, you're talking to somebody, and when they finally send the picture or they never send the picture, it ends up not being what they said it was, or it just, that doesn't look right, or whatever that is.
Or they just disappear.
Yeah, or they disappear as well.
In many ways, I do feel like the insane buyer's premiums we all pay now are somewhat paying to streamline the process.
No, I actually agree with that. I mean, I think the buyer's premiums are, getting silly, but you are paying for lack of a better word, the concierge service of the shit will be there when they say it'll be there. It will be what it is. And, again, the date is the date. Like you're not like, oh, the auction's on, well, whatever, the Stewart Berkowitz auction is on the 24th, and you don't get to the 24th, and someone goes, oh, no, now it's in December. That doesn't happen. The auction is the auction. You know what I mean? So
yes, I'm very sorry. My cat is ill. I can't really focus on this right
exactly.
now.
Yes,
what?
Exactly. Yeah. And I get it. And by the way, from my side too, you have times where like shit happens in your life. So it's not that. I want to be really clear about it. It's just, it's a little less easy. You know what I mean? And obviously there's other parts of it.
It can be.
It can be. Again, it depends on the who and the what. But, there are things where, like, if it's at an auction house, you can call an auction house and go, I need more pictures. Or if you're lucky enough to, if it's in London or you're Los Angeles, whatever, you go see it. You're doing a private deal with somebody who's, make it up, in Connecticut. I'm not in Connecticut, and I can't get to Connecticut tomorrow to go look at the piece the way I can get in my car and drive to Beverly Hills and look at something, at Heritage. You can't do that. And so that, again, is an element of the sort of the private deal that does make things more difficult. Now, again, when you're talking about a friend, maybe you've seen the piece or whatever, they know you like it, now you're kind of trying to just work something out. So that is a different sort of beast, I guess.
Different thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I just talking about these things not turning out the way you want them to. Before I found my Conan sword, the Atlantean, the first one that I tracked down, I had spoken to another crew member that was rumored to have one.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
went out, had dinner with him, with another collector friend of mine. Very affable dinner. Rather like known person in the sort of, if you're a fan of Conan and other movies of that era, kind of a known sort of character from that world. So the dinner was hilarious. The stories told were great. I mean, it was a win either way. And then we followed him out to his car to popped open the trunk, and I'm waiting to see hoping to see a Conan sword, and it's the sword from The Wind and the Lion, a different John Milius film, scimitar. But much different looking sword.
Right.
Sean Connery's blade from The Wind and the Lion,
Which, by the way, a lovely movie, not a
very
bad
cool to
movie,
see.
but not what you're looking for.
Definitely,
in this case. Yeah.
definitely not the Conan sword that I was very specific about. So, and those things happen all the time, or they think they have. This happens a lot. I think with the auction houses, they think they have a stormtrooper helmet from the original Star Wars, and it's a Don Post mask or whatever it is. These things happen all the time. The funny thing is, when the real Conan sword turned up, I think it was 5 days, and I had a deal on that thing. I mean, it was like, for me getting in contact with the guy, it was like, "Yep, I have this thing. You're willing to pay what?" And then,
keep going. Yeah.
I was in a Bank of America parking lot, and in a public place during the daylight, and the guy opened his trunk, and there was the Atlantean.
And that is the larger point of, I mean, that's when things go well, that is the beauty of the private deal. And as you said, look, whatever you paid, but I wonder, in auction might have gone higher, or in auction it's the same, but then you're paying fees. Again, we don't really know, but when it works great. So, like, again, in defense of private deals, there's a lot on the plus side as well.
Yeah.
The opportunity to get something, and again, I think the good private deals probably work out with everybody's kind of happy, meaning they're not ripping you off, you're not ripping them off. I think you get into a little bit of trouble when they kind of, it's the tough private deals that I've encountered over the years, and this is more comic art. I want to be sort of maybe clear about this, just for whatever reason, it hasn't happened to me lately, where the private deal, they want the price it will go for in auction 10 years from now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they're kind of trying to they're sort of trying to build into the idea that
Projecting.
They're selling it to you today, but you have to pay for what it will be in the auction they're not putting it into 10 years from now. And those don't quite work out so well for me.
Yeah,
Although,
it's like selling a
I'm sure
hamburger to Popeye's friend, right?
Yeah, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday. I mean, look, I've probably been offered many a deal like that. I think there's probably one I took once where it was just like, fuck it. I just have to have it.
Yeah.
But again, I will also say we were talking sort of what's the word I'm looking for? An array of numbers that were a lot smaller in the day, where, it's one thing when you're paying $5,000 for something that should be $1,000. That's the easiest way I can express it. And by the way, that used to happen. You know what I mean? Like when I was buying Dark Knight pages, because I was willing to pay, I can't remember, $1,500 a page, when everybody else,
madman,
right? People only wanted them, and were like, oh, no, I'm done at 900 or whatever it is. Hey, I got a lot of Dark Knight pages, and I'm not looking backward in any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? So
the
the
factorial is quite a bit higher these days.
Yes, and again, that is the thing. Again,
but
I think
it could just do the same thing.
Anything can happen. But it is funny. Again, the money, the numbers just really have, when these private deals do come along. Like I said, I think the last couple I've done, like I'm making this up, but like if it's $100,000. I've done like 25,000 cash. So they are getting checks, from me or however it is. But I guess there's 25,000 cash. But like, when you start getting into those bigger numbers, again, what are you doing with this cash? Where you can't deposit it without people asking for it. No one's going to take it. You can't buy a house. You can't buy an apartment with cash.
You can buy more props.
I guess you could buy diames. I don't know. I'm sure there's places. But anyway, it just, I don't know.
Have you ever done a deal in diamonds?
No, I have not done diamonds. I have not done any
Gold
kind
bars?
of Bitcoin or anything like that.
I heard somebody actually, there was this was not a deal that I did, but somebody that had something, the deal was, if you want it, it's $50,000 in gold. That was the thing that they expected. And I was like, well, how do you put that to? I guess at least it's easier to carry. right? Because it's just smaller. But like, where do you?
I mean,
Where do you go to get
where do
that?
you,
How do you
where
know?
do you where do you
How
start
do you know
with
it's
that?
real gold?
Well, even if I guess it is real gold, but like,
How
then
does
what
he
do you
know it's real gold?
Right.
Yeah.
Costco, you get the Costco gold, but
Oh.
but also you're talking about something with a fluctuating value. I think you know this. I tried to do a deal with someone in the UK, and they wanted pounds, and it wasn't a cash deal, although they were looking for some cash, I guess. But they wanted. I'm trying to remember the specifics. They wanted whatever their number was. I'm making this up now. Let's just to pick a round number. I'm just going to say $500,000.
$1 million billion?
Yes, exactly. $1 million billion. But they wanted 1 million billion pounds. And what they wanted was, even though I was going to be allowed to pay it over, I can't remember, let's say it was a year, they wanted to lock in the exchange rate on the pounds to the day the deal was done. Meaning, I guess if the pound went up, I mean, again, I never thought about this thing, and it felt like a headache. I mean, that's the honest answer.
Right, because how do you do that? I guess you're agreeing to a dollar conversion.
We're agreeing to 1.637,
Or
and then
it's a
and
dollar
then that's,
conversion today,
yes.
and then you just keep paying those dollars and whatever they get,
whatever
they get
happens.
converted
Yes.
to. Yeah,
And maybe they make money, maybe I make money. I don't know. I mean, again,
conversion rates are a motherfucker. You know,
Yeah.
I made a hashtag private deal in the UK about 3 years ago. That it was something I was always interested in, but the reason I was able to jump on it and take the number was because at the time, 3 years ago, the pound crashed against the dollar historically, and it actually dipped below World War I rates. It traded overnight at some point at like 1.04.
Yeah,
and this
it was
is something that
beautiful time where they were almost equal. It was like, holy shit.
And for many years, the pound was $2. Now it hovers more around, $1.30 to $1.40. That's sort of the normal range since I've been living in England for the last 6 years, sort of through COVID, post Brexit, whatever. That's the exchange rate. And it kind of hovers. Sometimes it dips. Last year it went down to $1.20, which when you're buying groceries doesn't really matter, but when you're buying really expensive props, it actually does have an impact. And this deal I locked in and jumped all over because the asking number actually made sense because the pound had slid so low.
Right.
So I jumped on it and like he knew and it worked out for both of us because he was getting the pounds he wanted. It just cost me fewer dollars. It didn't bother him. So that was but that's another good example of something that's can be a headache. Never mind doing the overseas thing and all that. Can I ask something?
Please.
Do you have in recent memory somebody coming to you and saying, "Hey Dave, I want this," and you doing a hashtag private deal with them? Because I'm just curious as to what that looked like.
Me selling something? You
something
mean?
privately?
No,
yeah.
no.
Okay.
I don't want to sound like a too big an asshole, but again, more comic art than prop. Yeah, more comic art than prop. But on an almost semi-daily basis, I get random emails from comic art collectors.
Art, sure.
Yeah, usually picking truly some of like my better pieces. Like a lot of like, and again, you nothing that would shock you. Like a lot of times, people asking about the Killing Joke pages I have, and like sort of. It's always great. Like they want to buy it, and I write and I just say, look, I'm not looking to sell it. Also, I have this like sequence, and that's one of the pages of the sequence. I'm not looking to buy it, whatever. And that's fine. They usually kind of go away. Every now and then, what makes me laugh is like they're asking about a piece that like shitty Killing Joke page is selling for like $150,000, and then they're asking for like one of the last 4 pages of the book, where it's Batman and the Joker, and he may or may not be choking him to death, and the Joker's telling the jokes. They want one of those pages.
Spoiler. And
I'm not interested. Don't want to buy, but they want to let me know that they're serious, so they offer me $60,000. Like I'm just like, all right, So you get. And that is a little bit of the other side of I guess
I like your Ferrari, and I can offer you as much as
fame
half of what
or
it's worth.
internet fame or internet collection fame, I guess, whatever, where you do get a lot of that. So I don't know, such as it is. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we could just because I think it'd be helpful for the gang listening. Walk us through a private deal, what it looks like in your world. Not you obviously selling something, you buying something. You know, how, if there's somebody out there, they have a piece, whether it's a collector or just somebody that you know, a family member that's inherited something, a crew member, whatever. How do you make that initial approach? What is your strategy?
I mean, it's funny. The ones recently that I've done, I mean, again, it was relatively easy because they were basically going, I'm selling a couple of items, and they listed a couple of items. So again, I'm talking about now, I'm going to switch to comic art. It is what it is. I picked up recently a page, a Mazzucchelli Born Again page, which is something I really liked. It's a very pretty page of Ben Urich in Central Park. You know, grew up in New York City. I really like the page.
That's really cool.
Is it the best page in the book, like of Daredevil doing something? No, it is not. It's just a page I remembered and liked.
And his art is not out there, right? Because famously he keeps
broke
all
up.
of his.
He broke up 2 issues, I believe. So 2 issues are broken up, and people, you know, don't let them go too often. And like I said, this person put it up. They basically were saying, I'm selling, I can't remember, 7 items. Here's 7 items. I saw the listing. I looked at it. Page was whatever. I wrote the guy. I will also tell you, he's somebody that I do know. I don't pretend to know him well, but we have a bunch of mutual friends, whatever. I reached out. I said, you know, hey, do you want to do this? Great. And I think we split the payment in half. So I sent some, and then I'm sending the rest.
Was it Kief Fromm?
Yes, it was someone dressed as Dracula. But, you know, again, someone I knew, relatively easy to get done. And, you know, that's what it was. But again, somebody kind of putting something up for sale. It was not me.
But there was already an asking price on it. You didn't have to go in and say, hey, I really want this thing.
When there's 1,000 times easier when there is an actual price.
Yes.
I'm sort of circling 2 other things right now. One in the comic art world and one in the prop world, where there's no real price, number one, yet. I mean, I think there are things that we could argue are similar, but again, no real price. You know, it's far away, and I'm still trying to sort of, you know, do my research and make sure it's 100% it is what it is. And so all 3 of these things are kind of giving me like a migraine, if that makes any sense. Because again, you know, I had another one once. Sorry, I know I'm jumping all over the place. I had another piece. This was a piece of art, and it's still sort of an ongoing thing. But you know, I tried to show, you know, a little bit like I was like, you know, Zillow almost, where I was trying to kind of show like, these are the similar sales. You know what I mean? Like here, bless you. Here's a piece, same artist, same book. Here's a better page. Here's arguably a worse page. Maybe that we can kind of frame into that in that area. But then I was also trying to go, but by the way, this is a public sale, and this did not, you know, this is the price. And so technically the seller got this because there was sellers, you know, there was seller's premium and there was taxes. So, you know, it was interesting. I've had sellers that get that, and I've had sellers that don't get that, if that makes any sense. That
yeah, sure.
If they see, you know, whatever, you know, a phaser sells for $500,000, therefore they don't want to hear about, well, technically speaking, the person only got 4, you know what I mean? Or whatever it was. And therefore, wouldn't 420 be a very good offer? And it's like, well, no, it sold for 5. It's like, yeah, but it didn't, you know, and that's, I mean, and look, you can't force people to do deals they don't want to do, but yeah.
And that's a great example. I mean, because that's sort of my strategy, because I've had a couple of these instances recently where I've had to go in and do the thing where I have to, you know, I have to show my cards first and come out with a number. And look, we're beyond the days where you could just sort of be like, well, it's really hard to say what it's worth. You know, I could do this and whatever. I've never screwed anybody over. I mean, I've bought things that are now worth multifactorial more.
But that's that's not the point to the story. Yeah, unless you're talking about the passage of time that wants you to pay the I want a price from, you know, the year 2030, you know, that guy. But other than that,
but I try to be very fair. So I'm not if there's something that I want, I try to be honest with the person as possible, as to like, look, this thing is valuable. I'm not trying to get 10 cents on the dollar for this. I want it. I want you to walk away and not Google this auction house 3 days later and then get furious with me and try to sue me or whatever. So I want you to walk away happy. We're trying to make this deal. But we're making a private deal, so I'm not looking to pay, full boat plus 26% shipping taxes, insurance, whatever, that I would if I had to buy it, at the Hammer. So what I tend to do is I tend to paint it's harder for me often in props, because with the lovely thing about comic art is whatever page you have, there's always 3 examples in the last year. There's usually
a lot more of
say,
it. Yes.
Like, here's another McFarlane piece. It's not Spider-Man, but here's one that is Spider-Man. You can see there's a delta between these 2 pages, and but the Spider-Man image that you have isn't quite as good as this one. So I would say it's a little, you can do that. Whereas with a movie prop, you're often doing the look, I don't know, nothing is really around from this movie.
Although just to interrupt everyone's favorite part, when you're trading in
too.
Star Wars and Indiana Jones and whatnot, there are a lot of data points. So again, the things that I'm usually looking for, or I'm talking to people in private deals, are usually from those kinds of things. And even if they are semi one of a kind, like it's somebody's gun, you can go, well, the Chewbacca gun sold for this and the Han Solo gun sold for that. I don't think this is quite as good as either of those. And be very open. And I'll send auction listings and go, look, these are the 2 best guns that have sold in auction. I don't think we're at that level. This is a much worse gun. I think the again, I'm going to try and be. The point of a private deal is hopefully not for you to fuck over the seller, and hopefully not for the seller to think he's trying to fuck you over. So yeah. And so that's what I try to do. I try to triangulate some kind of reasonable, reasonable world where we can live in, and say, look, it's not worth this much because it's not going at public auction. This thing that it was screen matched. It's from the same movie or a very similar movie. But there was one of these things. There were 3 to 5 of these things, whatever. But here's a reasonable offer that I'm hoping excites you as much as I am excited about this piece, that we can come to something. I really try to. I think in my dealing over the last 15 years, the thing that I've always tried to present to anybody that I've dealt with, and this is the businesses that I've dealt with, when Prop Store was sort of in the more kind of retail to consumer operation, and then with the other collectors that I know or the people that I've dealt with, I always try to present as, look, I'm not going to be a headache for you. We're going to come up to a fair price that we both agree on if we're going to do the deal, and presuming that we do, I am going to get you taken care of quickly and without headache. And that is the move that I make, so that I can assure you of that in advance. And if something else comes on down the line that you're interested in selling, you will remember how easy and pleasant it was to deal with me. And I will often, in a perfect world, again, especially when people are somewhat known to me or willing to whatever, if I can just make my world easier by making some time payments, great. But if that's going to be a problem, check will be there tomorrow, FedEx, or the wire can be there tomorrow. So I'm going to try and be the easiest guy humanly possible. And
I will say too, Dave, I'm going to interrupt for a moment.
Yeah, please.
How
dare you?
How dare you? What was the Dianu? The thing that we can often...
I'm going to make a Jew out of you yet. I love it. Yeah.
It's happening. That's why I bought that Steven Spielberg commemorative yarmulke in the last Prop Store.
To just wear.
I got it for half off after in the after auction deal making. But the advantage that we can often offer, Dave and I and other people, to somebody that's maybe thinking about putting something in an auction is like, guy, if you really want to do this, I will, in 48 hours, you'll have that transaction in the bank. You won't have to ship the thing out to the auction house. You won't have to wait for it to be authenticated. You won't have to wait for the auction to go by, chew your nails to the nibs, hoping that the thing gets the price, the opening price that you've asked for, the reserve price, or hoping that it sells. Or hoping that the buyer then comes through with the deal, because those things sometimes happen where you sell a thing that you think you sold a thing in the Hammer, and then you have to wait to make sure that they're going to pay for it. And sometimes they do a payment plan. So yeah, you've waited 6 months for this auction, and then you find out that they've gotten this year-long payment plan that you have to wait for. And we're talking at that point about present value of money. Like I have, the bird in the hand today, which is very competitive against what you're thinking about for the auction house.
The check will be there within 24 hours or whatever.
It will appear,
ACH, yes. ACH,
it will appear
wireless,
electronically like magic when you log into your bank account. And I think that's a huge advantage to people. And I think the auctions can be a bit intimidating and somewhat frustrating at points to people that aren't as attuned to them as you and I are in terms of being consigners.
Right. And let's go one step further, which is, and I want to be really clear about this. I've probably had in my life sort of 3 items where I was trying to do a private deal. The person just ultimately, I was offering big numbers. They ultimately did not want those numbers. They felt the number, I guess, would be bigger. They put it in auction. I think it's been both kinds of auctions where there have been reserves, but also, no reserve auctions. But even when they had the reserve was kind of around the number I was offering, and they were hoping that they would get more. And in, certainly most of those cases, I'm right. I mean, I don't know how to say this. It sells for kind of what I said it would, what I was kind of offering or what I thought it was worth. In some cases, I was saying to them, look, I think it's worth 100,000, but I really want this. I'll give you 150. I really want to get this and be done with it. So I was offering them more than the number. And by the way, and then ultimately they don't get the number. I mean, I did have one, again, this is a comic art piece. I had one with a piece of Star Wars comic art where I was offering, like with cash and also a piece of art trade, I was offering well over $200,000, and the piece hammered around $100,000, and which is, by the way, a fine number. I want to be really clear to people. This is not, the yacht show. I understand these are big numbers. I'm just telling you, when that person got $100,000, when that person got $100,000 for their piece, they had paid probably, I think, 50 or so. So they doubled their money, which is spectacular, but they turned down my offer of 200 plus. And all I could do was laugh. I mean, I'm not trying to be a big asshole, but you had the opportunity.
And did you win? The hammer went to you.
I was the winner. Yeah. And years ago, this collector's dead. So it's not Kief Fromm, but somebody else. There was a guy, I won't, it was, I can't remember what his last initial was. I was going to say his first name with a last initial, like like a Alcoholics Anonymous. It was Jerry ? I can't remember what his last name was. And he had a
Seinfeld?
Jerry Seinfeld. And Jerry Seinfeld had the Greedo mask. And I wanted it, and he just couldn't work it out. I didn't win it. I actually was angry enough that I just didn't bid on it. But we were both at the live auction, and when the auction ended, and whatever he got for it. Again, this is years and years ago. This would have been Profiles in History when they were kind of deep in the valley. So before, this is let's call it like mid 2000s or something. The auction was over, and I very happily went over to him and just said, I'd have given you double than that, but you wouldn't deal. It's just like, go fuck yourself. Go think about that all night. And again, that happens too. So wherever that fits in.
And now he's dead.
But I still don't have the Greedo mask. So, oh well, it doesn't, it doesn't help me. But
Do you know where it is?
There were 2 of them, as I think you're aware, and I can't remember which one it was.
So you know where one is.
I know there's one in that very excellent collection in France that I think is complete, but there's something up with the eyes. Like the Greedo eyes were popped out, which makes me think this is not that one.
Did that happen when when you told him that?
Yeah, he went boing and his eyes shot out into Greedo.
I was doing more. He angrily grabbed his mask.
He punched the mask.
Yeah, that's right.
I think this was not that mask, but I just don't remember.
Okay.
It's just been too long. I'd probably have to look it up. So I think it's the other one, and I don't know where it ended up. For all I know, it's at the Mopop or something. I can't remember, honestly. Yeah, I've lost track of it. But it was what it was. And the guy was just a real pain in the ass. And, it's like he, just kept throwing crazy numbers around, which I was never going to pay. He just $1 million, and it's just like, nope, not going to do that. He got his $36,000. I would have happily given him 75. It's just one of those. So all right, fine.
But these are the sort of trials and travails and tribulations of doing a private deal. You just have to deal with the personalities involved.
I put things in auction all the time, and I have things that go less than I would have liked. I have things that go more than I would have liked, and it all kind of balances out. But that's over an array of, like putting, whatever, 30, 40 pieces into an auction. When you put one piece in, and if that's the one that just is the loser, and again, I don't mean loser like it doesn't sell, although that can happen. I just mean it didn't, you put it in for a reserve, but you're expecting so much more, and it just doesn't happen, So again, there's no answer. I certainly think done right, done politely, done fairly, a private deal can be a great thing. And so I'll sort of end on that point more than anything.
Yeah, I totally agreed. I love a great private deal. I mean, there's an electricity that happens when something like that presents itself and it becomes real, because you do nowadays, now that it just feels like, and not to say the auctions are boring, auctions have their own excitement around it. Everybody loves, oh, the new auction catalog is coming out, I want to page through it. But there's just a kind of old school Indiana Jones sort of Sam Spade treasure hunter thing that comes along when a private deal sort of floats its way across your nose.
And I think
there's also this secretive thing of like, nobody else knows about this, that it's going on. It's just with me. And I can, I have the power to sit and think about this and to say yes or no, or to try to raise money, or to try to negotiate the price. And I just, I miss it. There was a period, at the beginning of my collecting career, I didn't buy a lot at auction because there weren't a lot of auctions, and it was really intimidating to me. And you bid on this thing, and then 25% more you have to pay to the auction house or whatever. But then there was in the middle of my career when I got really active and I was buying multiple pieces a year, it felt like half of them were at auction and half of them were coming from private deals. And I just missed that time, having those options to sort of, dip in and out. And now it just feels like, now it's sort of, the funny thing is there are these three sort of plates spinning now, which is just that's unique. I can't think of the last time.
But by the way, next week they could all be gone, or next week they could all be in auction.
The plates could crash to the floor.
Exactly,
yeah, that does not mean any of these things are going to come through.
The thing one other little point that I guess we sort of talked about, but maybe didn't enough, was I do think there's something where, I'll simply say you and I, maybe as known collectors, whatnot, at least I think a lot of times the seller understands how much we love the stuff, and also understands that we're buying it to put in our collection, meaning we are buying
don't
it
discount that.
Not to flip it, like, by the way, some other random buyer or whatever. And obviously that's true in auction. You put it in auction, the buyer does whatever they want with it. But I do think there is something sometimes when something, and maybe we should have made this point earlier, but when something is important to someone, like a family that has had a piece for a long time, a family of prop people or whatever it is, maybe they're thinking a little bit about like wanting it to go to quote unquote a good home. And certainly in the world of comic art and in props, people get a chance to sort of see, my condo and how I keep the stuff. And also, look, as people are aware of on our show, I have sold some things off in the last, couple of years as I've bought other things, but they're things that I, bought, like along the way. I've yet, I'm not selling like my great stuff, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And certainly I'm not selling things that I like, I don't think I've sold anything from any of these private deals where part of it was, hey, you're getting it for a reason, like we love that you love the stuff. So I do think there's something to be said for that, along with fast payment and all of those things. So there's one other point for you. Yeah.
I try to present myself as like, I am such a huge collector. I'm a huge fan. I do a lot now. Right. I will look at my podcast. I'll do, this is what I do for a living. I will do, here's an article about me as a collector. Right. Just to show that.
But I do laugh because, by the way, that is exactly what guys who flip stuff are able to. I'm such a big fan. Oh, yeah. Look, here's my collection. So, it makes me laugh. Yeah.
But I do think showing passion, that where it doesn't feel like you're a dealer coming in trying to middleman them with their piece, I think does go a long way.
There was a guy who built a comic art website, And he used to sort of, that was his selling point. He'd meet artists and be like, I love this stuff. Like, this is the website I built and blah, 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 and get the piece and just flip it right into auction. So yeah, anyway, it's like anything we're saying here right now could be, easily just, used.
Yes. I'm just saying,
yes. I'm understood. Yeah.
The genuineness of my strategy, I hope, is coming across, because it is real. But yeah, I love a good private deal. Who doesn't?
Yep. How dare you? But hashtag private deals are wonderful when they work. So yeah, I guess we wanted to set the record straight. Maybe that was our point. Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
But they can also be used by scumbag prop manufacturers masquerading as original sellers to keep things out of the public market, where public scrutiny could come into play, where they're selling you things that, if you look at even somewhat closely, you'll realize is just coming right out of a mold shop. And there weren't that many fucking dark sabers made for the Mandalorian. I've seen 30 of them for sale.
I don't think they made 2,000 of the little horses from Blade Runner 2049, but maybe they did. Maybe they needed 2,000.
Maybe they did when they handed them out to the whole crew upon wrap.
How dare you? All right, this was excellent. Please like us. Give us 5 stars. Check out whatever's going on our YouTube channel, and follow us.
Send us threatening emails at Dreams Are Made Of
Podcast.
Dreams Are Made Of Podcast at gmail.com.
Care of How Dare You.
Hashtag How Dare You.
Fantastic, and we'll be back next week.